Hey dreamers. I'm just getting my live set up at the moment, so I'll get started shortly. I am just trying to see if I can use a flare. If I have any, I don't know where they are. Let's see. Oh, how do I change my comment? Okay, my comment up here is for my last Let's Play. And I don't know where that came from. I mean, obviously I set it up last time, but how do I change it is the question. Do 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 do. Hey there, thanks for joining. Okay. Okay, I'll figure out the flair at some point, but yeah, what I want to do with today's live is, well, what I want to do with all of my TikTok lives is take an hour each week to talk about my theme of the week and how it shows up. What are my thoughts about the theme, and just to engage in discussion with people about my thoughts and opinions on the theme as well. So last week I didn't get a chance to start my lives, but I am going to do two this week. So this first one is based on the theme of letting go. Perhaps I should start with explaining where my themes came from and why I'm doing this at all. So my name is Kiki on social platforms, and I am running this experiment called Kiki's Big Dream Experiment. It is a challenge for myself to put myself out there and do things that I want to, I guess, in a way that brings me closer to embodying this dream I have of like building a brand for myself and showing up authentically. And I am doing various pieces of content in my week to get there. TikTok Live is one of them. I'm also streaming video games on Twitch. I am posting reflections on my blog. And you can look at my blog on my website, and that will explain a bit more about what this experiment actually is. And I'm choosing the theme using sort of random generation. I am building an intention for the week, looking at what I am taking from the previous week and combining the two together, shuffling a deck of tarot cards to just get a prompt really to decide on a theme for my week. So in week one, the card that I drew was the Hanged Man, number 12. And the theme of that I'm just going to mute my laptop. The theme of that was letting go. And so all of my content last week was about the theme of letting go. I posted a newsletter on Tuesday on LinkedIn, and the theme was about letting go with respect to the workplace, and trying to work around the systems that are holding you in place. And then on Thursday on Substack, I wrote a post about what letting go means in terms of showing up in the world. And so that's what I want to talk about in this live, is the theme of letting go. Hey Dean, I look like Simon Harris. I hope that's a compliment. So yeah, I just want to talk to people and share my thoughts and ideas and get some discussion going to just share my ideas and see where they go. Um, I suppose for me, why am I doing this? So all of this came from a desire to try manifestation. It's a practice I came across a couple of months ago that articulated a lot of what I was doing already in terms of setting goals, setting intentions, and working towards those goals and dreams. And also what to do when things weren't quite going the way I wanted to. And so I realized that the piece I was missing was mindset work. Um, and I find that it's this mindset work that holds a lot of people back. So, what am I doing with this experiment? I'm showing up every day. I'm producing content and I am sharing my voice and opinions to show how manifestation actually works and that it's not this woo woo magic thing. It is a practice that is based in neuroscience. It just has colorful language. And the whole purpose of the colorful language is to try and connect people with the practice in a way that feels compelling to them. So if you look at religion, religion is a colorful way of manifesting something. Science is a colorful way of manifesting something. It depends on, what your belief system is and what is the language that you resonate with. So I've created my own system and language to understand my thoughts and the way that I work. And I think everyone does this. Everyone does do this. Everyone has their own version of what a particular word means. And the trouble with debate is that we get stuck on arguing our definition of the term and not looking at, well, why do two different people have two different perspectives on the same word and what it means? And it's because of our unconscious bias, our conscious bias, and the experiences we've had and our perspectives. So it's really important to listen to people when they share their perspectives to try and understand where they're coming from. And this practice requires the concept of letting go. So for me, letting go is about doing what you can with your power, but surrendering to the outcome of your actions. You're letting systems that exist in the world do their thing because you can't control them. And letting go means being okay with where those systems end up placing you. And that doesn't mean that you have to accept if a system says that you're wrong or that you're not this or you're doing this incorrectly. It doesn't mean that you accept that. It just means that the system that you're working with doesn't align with your values. So you go find a new system. A good example of this would be religions. And we all know that there are people who grow up in a religious culture, look at the values of that religion and say, actually, it doesn't fully align with me. I'm going to go and do something else. And so you're letting go of the control that this system has over you and taking agency in what you decide. And ultimately, it's your power to decide that shows you who you are and how you show up creatively. So, yeah, I guess as I'm talking, if people have questions, I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas. That's the reason I'm doing a live, is so that I can connect with people. And yeah, I mean, I can talk forever about this theme of letting go, but I want to get some direction as well. See what parts of the ideas that I'm sharing are things you want to probe me on. So I'm just gonna pause for a minute or two because I've been talking a lot, of course, and I just want to give my brain a little time to decide what comes next. And I'm taking notes, so anytime I look this direction, I'm just doing notes on my laptop. To articulate an example of letting go and how it's so popular, I'll come back to this idea of tarot because I mentioned it earlier that I use tarot to describe my themes for the week. And I realized that, Kiki's Big Dream Experiment is a 90-day venture that I've set up for myself to show up every day, show up publicly, be myself, be authentic, and also to connect with people and do experiments to show them ways that they can empower and connect with their intuition. And I was trying to think, what is my story for this? How do I want to organize those 90 days? And I've broken it down into weeks. So my first week was 5 days long. I started on the 1st of October and ran it until the 5th of October, which was a Sunday. And I, over those 5 days, just prepared launch materials before getting into my first full week. And I decided to show how my systems of surrendering to the process actually work in real time. So I built this structure where I have 9 pieces of content each week that I will produce. That's my container. I don't know what I want to fill that container with yet because I haven't got to the day of producing the content. And so how do I fill that container? How do I decide when I'm going to write about on a Tuesday when I post on LinkedIn? Or how do I decide when I'm writing on Thursday when I'm posting on Substack? And I connected it with this manifestation idea. I set a dream for my week in terms of what do I know about, or rather, what do I want to accomplish? What are the actions I want to accomplish? What are the things I want to learn? And I take this intention, focusing on it, to shuffle a deck of cards, to draw a random one, and then use that to make me think about how my intention aligns in some way to this external system of tarot cards to find a purpose for my week. Hey Josh Rocks, am I a gamer? Yes, I am. I love games and I love making everything into games. My Kiki's Big Dream Experiment is a big game. It's a big experiment. Thank you, Simon. So with my themes of the week and tarot, what I wanted to do was show that it doesn't matter what I fill the containers with, and that over time my story will kind of reveal itself. I've got so much in my brain about what I want to share, but I'm conscious that I can't be on all of the time and share every single thing in a way that's unstructured for other people, because that means that they have to do work to figure out what I'm talking about. So I use this weekly theme that comes from a tarot card to give me a point of view for the week so that I can articulate it, and other people can look at that perspective or that theme to think about how it shows up in their life and see where our ideas connect or they diverge. And so, how it shows up as letting go is I'm releasing the expectations on what will actually happen. I am trusting that this random process gives me a pathway that allows me to create a story behind it. And that's what manifestation really is. You're trusting the world around you to react to the way that you operate. So, my first week was the theme of letting go. And the big part of that is surrendering to things you cannot control. You know, we think we have control over our lives, but really we're within systems that control us in some way. If you think about the place you live, do you own it outright? If you don't, you're either renting it or you have a mortgage. Um, there's maybe other circumstances that lead to the explanation of like how you are where you're living at the moment. But those are systems that are set up to give people a place to live. And you just surrender to it. You have to like give in. If you're not in a position to buy, then you have to rent. And while, yeah, there might be things not great about renting, it's a decision you ultimately make because you would prefer to rent and gain the freedom of doing that than to not rent and be in a position that you can't or don't have control over. And letting go doesn't, and surrendering to the system doesn't mean that you fully accept everything it gives you. You take the positives from it and use it as a stepping stone to work towards the overcoming the negatives that you find because of it. If you think about that renting scenario and now think about how we have no control over where the planet Earth is moving, we can predict where it is in space because we're orbiting the sun. But even our entire solar system is moving through the universe in a way that, we find it really difficult to conceptualize. We have no control over where the Earth goes because it's on a scale much bigger than anything we can do at the moment. So we just, we don't even think about that. If we do think about it, we just have to surrender to the fact that we can't control where the Earth goes next. We can't control if we crash into something, but we know enough about the behavior of the Earth to predict where we will end up. That's why you see news about, we're coming near asteroid fields, or there's something in the universe that is maybe on a collision course with us. You see it all the time in movies. And these are systems that we don't understand, that we can't control, and we just have to let go of that and focus on what we do have. I'd love to hear from you guys if you've got questions or thoughts about anything that I'm saying, because I want this to be a dialogue. Sam, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts, if there's anything you'd like to share. I'm having a look through the settings to see if I can use a flare. I thought I had one, but I'm not sure. I guess I'll just have to let go if I can't find it. So my first theme for week one is letting go. One thing, actually, at the end of the week, when I produced my reflection on the week, the pieces of content that I produced over my various platforms, I did look at, what did I learn over that week? And I decided I wanted to identify some takeaways that I can carry into the next week to make sure that as I produce various pieces of content that I am learning from it and growing each week, because I don't want to end this experiment as the same person that started the experiment, because that would feel like the experiment failed. I'm doing an intervention by putting a system in place to observe behavior and see what happens at the end. And it's a different kind of experiment structure than we see in science, where anecdotal evidence is not really strongly accepted as true evidence. And I think that is a big limitation for our current system of science. Because if you think about it, where do these questions come from if not an individual's idea or experience wanting to ask the question? The purpose behind science is to look at the experience of the general, and we've done a great job of doing that so far, but we have ignored the smaller populations of people. And we're in a place now where we need to listen to those voices, because we're realizing that with the internet and with AI, we're connecting more and more. We're in an age where the device you're watching this on can connect you to more people than you could ever possibly have imagined connecting to in your life if you didn't have this device. And there is a power in there, because if you look at trends on social media, you see that people are sharing their daily experiences and others are saying, oh, that's my experience. The tools and the actions that you're taking to help you in your day to day, that's something I can try. And then people will try those things and realize this is amazing. These techniques are amazing. Why aren't we talking about them more? Or they might say, oh, this technique doesn't work for me, and this is why. And build upon that experience to create something new to bring into the world. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I've been looking at all of the things around me that have, I suppose, that I've interacted with, that I say, oh, I like this, I like doing this, but I don't like doing that. So I'm going to focus on this thing I like doing so that I can understand it more, and so that I can understand what are the skills that it brings to me. And by combining all of those likes together, I start to identify the way that I learn, the way that I operate in the world. And so I've built this system for myself that I really connect with and allows me to action on the goals and dreams that I have. And part of my experiment is I want to set up circumstances to get people thinking about the ways that they think to become aware of perceptions. One thing that I think is going to be a good example of this, I set up a. So I want to connect with people. So I do TikTok lives. I have a TikTok account. I have an Instagram account. I have Substack, LinkedIn, a website. I have all these different platforms for connecting with people, and they all allow me to connect with people in different ways. And the different ways that you connect shares a different perspective. So the people who connect with me on LinkedIn are looking at me from a corporate standpoint, from a workplace standpoint, and the value that I bring to an economy, basically. TikTok is entertainment or education and discussion. Substack is allowing me to reflect on my thoughts and ideas and philosophies and sharing those in a space where other people expect to read about different philosophies. Where was I going with this? why was I talking about my experiments? Oh yes. So one of the things for connecting with people that I set up was while I was on LinkedIn, I got a notification or a suggestion to create a job posting using AI. So I said, okay, let's have a look at this. I haven't seen this before. So I set up a job posting with AI. I started it, and I realized that, oh, the description that it's giving me here for a person that seems to suit my brand and company's ideals as I have them described on LinkedIn is not really the type of person that I want to fully connect with. So I went away from LinkedIn and I wrote down what is the type of person I actually want to connect with. And so I set up this job posting as a volunteer position to act as a collaboration process. And I wanted to connect with people who are creative because I think that creativity is the spark that moves us all forward. We all want to be creative in some way. We all want to share our opinions and our perspectives. And when we have outlets to do that, we can do those things. But when we're in systems where we're not being listened to, we're not allowed agency, we're not allowed to validate our experiences and opinions, then we don't feel like we have purpose. We feel like we're in the wrong place. And so I wanted to do this through a job application because it captures a different set of people. It captures a curiosity that people have if they see a job description that is unusual, that doesn't have a requirement, that has 3 questions that seemingly don't mean anything to them. My questions are, how much creativity do you have in your life, in your day-to-day life, if you were to rank it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not very much and 10 being a lot. Or sorry, 10? I'm getting lost in my own assumptions. I had it set up from 1 to 9. And there's a reason I had it set for 1 to 9, but that's not apparent from the questions. The questions just ask on this scale of 1 to 9, how much do you think that you are being creative in your day to day? How ready would you be to collaborate with other people? And what was my other one? What was my other one? Anyway, I can't remember what the other one is, but you can see it on LinkedIn if you want to look at my link in bio and go to the jobs that I have posted. It's still going to be active there until tomorrow. But what is the purpose of this? It is to try and connect with the curiosity that people have. because that's the type of person I want to connect with. Someone who is curious and has questions and wants to understand what I'm doing. And I decided, I'm treating this job posting as an experiment to see how many people connect with this idea of a volunteer position. And now that I am almost at the end of the time that the job posting is going to be live, I'm seeing that I've got 40 or 50 people who have applied. So that's 40 or 50, we'll say 50 people who have applied who have seen something in my job description that made them want to apply. There was a curiosity there. They answered my 3 questions to give a score out of 9 for each one. And they also provided their CV because that is a minimum requirement for job descriptions on LinkedIn. And I couldn't help that. So I've been thinking, okay, I have these people now. I've got a connection with them. There's something in them that wanted to apply. And I want to build an experiment to interview them. And as I'm thinking about this experiment, I want to be very upfront with people. I want to share the questions I'm going to ask. I want them to let go of the parts of an interview that are unnecessary. When you go into interviews, you're trying to anticipate what are the questions that you're going to be asked. And that takes up so much time and energy that you even forget to answer the questions properly. You're trying to understand what is the perspective they want, but really the job interview should be that you go in there and you be honest and authentic and connect with people. And if they don't think you're a fit for their job, then it means the job is not a fit for you. This is what surrender and letting go is all about. Show up as yourself, don't compromise it, and the opportunities that are suitable for you will present themselves to you. And you might need to go through many of these examples, like interviews, to understand, okay, actually, I am not presenting authentically. I need to be presenting authentically. I need to connect with what I want. And so with the interview, yes, Dylan, exactly. You're more likely to find a better fit when you show up authentically because you're not presenting this persona of yourself, this image that is not authentically you. And so what I want to do with my interviews is I want to take those 3 questions that I've already asked people to score themselves on and ask them as questions. Who are you? What are your hobbies? Why did you apply? And see what people say. And I have my own reason for asking the questions in this way. I'm trying to understand, how does the person see themselves? When I ask, who are you? Tell me about yourself. This person is going to articulate an answer that they think I want to hear. And I'm going to be looking at that and seeing, okay, are you answering because of an established, maybe, ritual or routine that you see in job interviews? Oh, they want me to talk about my education and what I've achieved. I don't really care about that because your CV will tell me that. But what I want to hear from you is, why did you do the things you did? What are your beliefs? What are your dreams? What are your fears? But I don't want to start with that because that really throws people off. I want to start with asking people to answer these basic questions and see what is their baseline. Because truly, you become authentic when you start trusting someone and you build a connection with them. And I don't want to judge them on this first interview because everyone is different. The whole experiment is just reading questions here. Some questions like that often reveal who a person is based on the way they answer them questions. That's exactly it. So when you ask a simple question like this, you get a lot more information than if you ask a really specific question. If you ask a really specific question about a business problem, for example, then you'll get different answers from everybody that you talk to. And the bias there is that you end up gravitating towards the people that whose direction you agree with. And I think that is a failing that we have in our system at the moment. We should be connecting to people to identify what drives them, because it's this diversity of thought and experience that is really important. And that's what I want to get at. So my first step is asking these three simple questions, taking notes, sort of digesting it according to the way that I want them to answer those questions. And as I said, I want to share these questions in advance so that everyone is on the same playing field, that this interview is an experiment. I'm telling you exactly what I want to ask you, and I want you to be authentic about it. The second part then is that I will reveal what my findings are, and that when I ask someone, to rank themselves on these three questions with a score of 1 to 9, I'm going to be giving my own version of a score, and I'll give them that score and say, okay, this is where you ranked according to my scale of 1 to 9, and see how different was it from the way that they answered it. And it's supposed to be a point to open a discussion, to say, okay, this is what I'm looking for. I want to show you the true essence underneath the questions, the thing that I'm looking for. Phrase the questions in a different way so that you can answer what I'm trying to look for, as opposed to making you guess what I'm trying to look for. Because it doesn't help anyone. You're going to waste your time talking on a tangent, not actually telling me what I need to know. So I need to be articulate and clear about what I'm trying to find out from you. And so the second step that I'm going to propose is I give these questions back to an individual and say, okay, these are the points that I want to understand. And this is the longer explanation of the question. That when I ask who are you, I want to know what are your interests, what are your passions, what do you dream about, what are you afraid of? And anything else along that line, take away the qualifications. Anyone can go and get a qualification. And that's what our CV tells us. It says, I've done these qualifications, but that doesn't tell me what was your motivation for doing it. I would much rather someone says, oh, I have a passion for problem solving, so much so that I did a degree in mathematics and then a master's in computer science. Because that's what I did. I did a degree in mathematics because I loved mathematics. I then did a master's in computer science and data analytics because there was another area I was interested in that I wanted to work on. And I realized the underlying story behind them is that I love solving problems and I love using technology to make things faster and automated. So my second step is I want to share those questions with people so they can sit, reflect on them and kind of answer the questions that the way they would if they were like writing an essay. And the third step is I want to redo the interview, ask the same original questions, but now the person has a perspective in which they can answer. And I will score them a different way. I will score them according to their new answers. And we'll talk about that discussion or how it showed up. And this is my idea. This is my experiment. I want to share that it is like a 3-part process, and I will tell people what they need to know going through each step. And it's collaborative because I also want to give them a perspective where they feel empowered, which is to write down questions, take notes during the interview when I'm talking, to answer the questions that they have, so that at the end of the interview, they can look at their list and say, you've answered 5 out of my 7 questions. I have 2 questions more to ask you about. Because interviews are two-way. And Dylan, this comes back to your point about like simple questions that reveal who a person is. The question section at the end of the interview really tells you how a person thinks. But oftentimes we don't really have the space to give to thinking enough. You're given 5 minutes at the end, and it's only at that point that you're told to think of a question. Whereas I think if you have questions going into it and you're being conscious that you're you're answering a question that you've been asked, but you've also written down questions yourselves, and you're going to be getting information from the interviewer. Yeah, that's a great example there about Alex Ferguson having dinner with family. Because when you connect with people on a personal level, you understand how they think and how they show up in the world, and that, when they act outside of that character, that there's more going on that you don't see. The problem is with people is that we make assumptions on why a person is doing something, and we don't have the full story. Um, so yeah, this idea of letting go, I wanted to. Actually, my interview idea came up from a combination of this theme of letting go as well as this week's theme of seeking knowledge. And I suppose the way that I see it is that everything happens for a reason. So if I didn't get a chance last week to come live on TikTok to talk about letting go, so I'm doing it this week, and I've learned that things happen at the right time for you, as long as you believe that that is the case. I could have sat down on Sunday and thought, oh, I didn't get my TikTok live done this week. I'll just skip it and go on to the next one. But I didn't want to do that because I made a commitment to do 9 pieces of content. And while I might not get them done in the week, I want to make sure I do cover those at the very least. So now that I am finally doing this live and talking about letting go, I have this new idea that I only came across this week, and it is a good example of connecting themes together, because the theme I have for week 2 is seeking knowledge, and that's the purpose of doing experiments, is to seek knowledge. And I've been running experiments for myself to learn about myself, and I've been seeking knowledge about myself and trying to interpret it. And it comes back to this idea that anecdotal evidence is not evidence in the true scientific sense, but it is a starting point. You have to collect some data so that you can identify a pattern. That's what medicine is. You go to a doctor and you say, something is wrong, these things are wrong, can you fix it? And they look at all of the things that are wrong and say, oh, you've got all these symptoms, therefore you have this condition. The problem with that approach is that you're only looking at what is observable. You're looking at what a person tells you, the way that they think, the way that they feel that a symptom is worth reporting or not. And your language around it is going to be different, because as a medical professional, when you say, do you have anxiety, you know what that means. But a person who comes into you doesn't know what that means. They only know what it means based on what they hear people talking about online, what they see in media, or what they look up in the dictionary. But the way that something like anxiety actually manifests is going to be very unique for individuals. I spent so many years looking at myself being like, I don't think I'm an anxious person. But I realize that the way that my anxiety shows up is very different to the way that I feel it's portrayed in media and also in healthcare literature. You know, it feels very clinical. It doesn't actually tell you that the actions that you take are showing that there is anxiety there. Uh, so, my point about the anecdotal stuff is if you write about your experience, then you can start to map symptoms back to your experience to build a clearer picture of what's going on. And the more that people do this, the more that we can understand medicine by filling in the gaps that current medicine has. And when you get more and more people to do this anecdotal reflection, you're going to get, you know, big enough cohorts of people that you can start to look at data and create experiments that uncover things that we haven't been able to do so far. Like basically all of my experiments are to try and prove this idea of manifestation being a legitimate explanation for the way the world works in turning imagination into reality. And I really only sat down last night and realized that this is what I'm trying to do because it's something that I want to do for myself to see if it's true. If I can hold experiments and they give me information that leads this theory to be true, then that's just science. That's what we've always been doing. We've looked at something and thought, what if it worked this way? And then you do experiments and you tweak the assumptions based on the results of the experiments. It's like looking at light. You know, light is a particle and a wave. But we only discovered that by noticing the patterns of behavior. Because when you test it as a particle, it behaves as a particle. When you test it as a wave, it behaves as a wave. But how can both be true? And it's because that the idea of light is more complicated than we actually intuitively understand. So we have to take both of them together to find a truth underneath it. And that's where all of these further theories about like quantum mechanics comes from. And that's kind of the approach I have with manifestation. It is, you know, taking an experience I've had, my whole life has felt like manifestation, where I've thought about doing something, I've gone and done it. But where does that begin? Where did I get the idea from? Is it an idea someone else gave me, or is it an idea I came up with myself? And it's both, really. Our whole human experience is taking in information from the outside to build a belief system of yeses and nos, basically, to run as a big complicated computer. Our brain is a big complicated computer, and we don't fully understand it yet. And medical science will tell you that we don't fully understand the brain. But we know that it works because we're here, we're doing things. So I thought, well, if the brain can come up with this idea of manifestation, religion, art, all of these things that exist in the world, then there must be some universal truth that allows all of these things to exist. And so my theory is that manifestation is real. It is a way for us to bring imagination into reality. You know, when you talk to someone, you're listening to a perspective that you can't entirely understand, because the only way to fully understand it is go through exactly the same experiences that another person had, where they grew up, when they grew up, who they grew up around, what systems they've been part of, and every single experience that they've ever had. And it's impossible because the only experience you have is your own, and it is unique and it is valid and true. So this is why we should be writing down our experiences as anecdotal evidence, because over time we'll start to see that there's an underlying pattern going on that medical science hasn't yet got to. But we have to start with some data somewhere. You have to start with data before you can identify a pattern in order to ask a question to validate if that pattern is actually occurring. And that's what I want to do. I want to create these experiments to connect with people in ways that we've already established. And see what we can learn from them. It's kind of funny. I just started tapping my own screen and I realized that I'm getting likes. So why don't I just keep tapping my own screen? Um, it seems like something you shouldn't be able to do, right? Like, what's stopping people from going onto their own lives and just tapping the screen until they get lots of likes? Does it change the way that they show up in the algorithm? I'm sure that it probably is against terms of service. Who knows? Oh. So, what else? What else about this theme of letting go? What comes to mind is, we all have an imagination. We all have these ideas, and a lot of the ideas don't actually go anywhere because of some external system or pressure that an idea is silly, that it is not feasible. But why not? All the great inventions had to start with an idea of something that didn't exist yet. Hey Tom, what do I do as a job? I do this as a job, really. This is my dream, is my calling, is creating things. I am doing what I call Kiki's Big Dream Experiment at the moment. I started it on October 1st, and I'm running it for 90 days to show up online and to share my thoughts, ideas, and opinions, to kind of collect data about this worldview I have about manifestation as a theory for the universe, I guess. The thing is that how I answer this question changes on the daily. And that's kind of what's exciting about it, because someday I'll be so stuck in my creativity for writing a book that I will say I'm a writer, I'm an author. And other days I would be stuck in creativity of building systems that I would say I'm a systems architect. And I was working in a corporate job for 10 years. And one thing I learned from that is that give me a problem and I will solve it. I will find a way to solve it. I had lots of different job titles over the years, and they were like, what I realized is that when I was a first year or second year, and I was my official job title was assistant, it didn't position me in the way that I needed to be positioned in order to solve problems with people. I was working with people who had years of experience in their industry, like accounting. Yet they were coming to my team to try and solve a problem. And my boss would say, Kieran or Kiki, can you talk to this person about the problem that they have and see what we can do for them? And so in that state, I was speaking to them as an expert in my field. I was talking to them as an expert in data analytics because I had my degrees, I had the education, I had the qualifications to do that. But my job title said I was an assistant. And I wasn't an assistant in the true sense of the word. I was a collaborator. Um, and that's something I noticed over the years, that the job titles are there to build a hierarchy within the system to show sort of your level of progress in the workplace, but it doesn't actually reflect the value that you bring to the business. I found that I was actually getting less valuable in the business as I went up the ranks because the expectations became about selling and bringing in business and less about bringing value. Whereas in my early years, there was this expectation that, like, oh, assistants don't really know what they're doing. We have to give them time to figure it out. But I was figuring out things immediately and building value. So I had to let go of this idea that a label is permanent. And that's why my description of what I do as a job changes a bit every day. When I left my job, um, and then I was asked, what do I do? I said I was on a break because I took 6 months off to do something different. I had been working in a corporate job for 10 years and I wanted to take a break, separate or distance myself from it so that I could do something new. And then that evolved into, oh, I'm unemployed and I'm looking for a job. And then it evolved into, oh, I'm building a brand to explore an idea. And that ended up going into these areas of, today I'm a writer, today I'm doing a PhD, today I am a spiritual guru. You know, all of these are true at the same time. It's just in the moment, what am I working on immediately? And right now, for the this 90-day period, I'm on day 15. I am a scientist, I guess, running experiments. And there's two things related to letting go that's important for. One of them is letting go of the perceptions that other people have about me. If I say I'm an author, then you'll get these stereotypes and biases about what it means to be an author. If I say I'm a scientist, you're going to have a different set of beliefs. And so the truth is in there somewhere. But I'm just trying to combat, these perceptions that people have when I say a particular thing. So I realize that depending on my audience, I'm going to say a different thing. When I set up my brand on LinkedIn and had to really think about how it shows up in the world, I gave myself three titles. The first is a founder because I've come up with this concept and I founded it as a new idea. The second is a creative strategist because everything I do comes from creativity and strategizing how to bring it into the world. And the third thing then is a dream tester, which is a new title I made up for looking at a dream and testing to see how to make it possible. And so they're all true at the same time. And it's this triad of descriptions that I think captures the essence of what I'm trying to do and kind of personifies the roles a little bit. So when I'm talking to other creatives, I can talk about being a creative strategist and how I use creativity. When I'm talking to other people who want to find purpose, then I talk about being a dream tester. And when I talk to others about building a business, I speak to them as a founder. We all do this. It's the way that our world works. When we show up in our hobbies, we talk in a particular way, we act in a particular way. But when we show up in the workplace, we act in a different way and we talk a different way. And it's not about being inauthentic, it's about being authentic in the space that you're in. So you're going to use different language in order to do that. Thanks for joining. If you've any questions from what I've been talking about, I'd love to hear them, or comments as well. I've been talking for an hour and I need a little bit of a break to think about what comes next. What? I don't really know what this invitation is for. If someone has joined my live already, then why am I inviting them to join my live? Yeah, this is one of the things about TikTok. There's so many features and there's so many different systems and settings that it's not really clear what they mean. I guess I could just keep inviting people and see what happens. um, oh, what did I do? Okay. For 3 days. Yeah, why not? Oh, what is this? Stickers? How do I use that? Join me in whatever this is. This is what I mean. Like, what is the sticker for? What is the purpose of it? I don't know, but other people must know. Uh, Even where are all those things like the flares? Hey Mark, what does my partner think of my creative path? That is a good question. He is supportive of it, but I don't think he fully gets it. Um, and that's something that I struggle with anyway, is that on a particular day I have a focus, one like little nugget of my journey, and that's what I'm focusing on. So right now I'm talking about my themes of letting go and talking about these ideas with people to have conversations. Um, but then tomorrow I'll be doing something different. And the trouble is, I find it difficult to really articulate in a short number of words what I'm trying to do because I realize that for me, at least, the meaning comes at the end of doing something. I set out an intention to do something, um, and often I get asked questions of like, "Oh, why do you want to do that?" Like when I say I want to go live and talk about things, people say, "Why? Why do you want to do it on TikTok Live? Why don't you do it a different way? Or why don't you like go out and meet people in real life?" And it's because I have this intuition that I want to see what TikTok Live can give to me and see what I can give on TikTok Live. You know, it's just an experiment. It's trying out a new tool that I have access to. And once I finish my live, I will look back and think, okay, this is the intention I set out. This is what I got in the end. And how do those combine to form like a triangle of meaning, essentially? So it's difficult to answer that question because I don't know what he thinks fully. I only know what he thinks based on what he's told me. So I know that he supports it. He doesn't know all parts of it because I think there's too many parts to it to really understand all of it, and that's why I'm doing things like TikTok Live to try and articulate little bits like I might say 1,000 words and only 20 of them are actually important. And so I'll take those 20 and build on them and articulate those 20 a bit better next time until eventually I get to a small number of words that really gets across my message. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's the best answer I have at the moment. So I said that I was just going to do 1 hour, and I am hitting that 1 hour now. So I want to ask for anyone who is watching at the moment, if there's any questions you might have or comments, feel free to comment them now. Um, Feel free to follow me as well so you'll get notified of the next time I go live if you would like to join me. So yeah, so follow me and you'll get notified of the next time I'm going live so you can join me in conversation. Just to look at comments here. So Mark, it's good. Just curious, as someone who is also a creative being and thinking that it's such a big risk economically. Yeah, it is. It is a risk economically, and I've had to reckon with that myself. So when I was working a corporate job, one of my goals was to save up money so that I could do this. And I know that's a privileged position, but I also knew that I wanted to do it because I couldn't see myself staying in a job like that for another 30 years. That I wanted to take my own creativity and do something with it. But what I'm hoping to do is, from my experience, to find the shortcuts so that other people don't have to spend 4 or 5, 6 months or years getting to a place where their vision can be realized without all of the risks, all of the economic risks that we have to live with at the moment. Like right now, I'm not getting paid for this, but I know that the money will come when I need it, essentially, and I'm working towards it. I do have to have this mindset of eventually trying to make money from what I do because it's the only way that I will be able to survive my day, my week, my year, in order to keep this up. And so the economy at the moment is that you can earn money by bringing value. And so I'm starting with the value. I'm giving the value first to prove that it's there and it's valuable. And I'm hoping the money will come later. And this is a really big sort of assumption that I make in my thinking, that action comes first and meaning comes later. That you can't define meaning at the start. You can only define intention. And then when you act and do something creative in the world, it now belongs to the world, and the world will react to it and form a meaning about it. And you are there as the storyteller to explain the reason you created it in the first place. And so that's what I'm doing with bringing value. I'm bringing, rather than like asking for money now to show what value I'm bringing the value now so that the money can flow to me later, essentially. And it's a different way that the world it's very different to the way that the world works at the moment. But I think that it is worth trying because so few people are doing it. So why aren't they doing it? They're not doing it because the economy at the moment and the way that our world works doesn't reward you for giving away information for free. It doesn't reward you for helping people. It rewards you for being selfish and doing things to promote yourself. And I'm doing all of this so that I can show up authentically. And some part of that comes with, promoting myself, but I am giving myself a chance to be authentic. That's what showing up is about. And I'm letting go of these expectations and biases that other people have because I know I had them myself before. And I realized it was coming from a place of fear for myself. Like, I couldn't understand why someone would take a job that paid less money or take a job that pays no money. But now I'm in a position where I can see that and understand it. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's more going on than I know. So I'm just showing up because other people will look at me and say, okay, there's more going on than I know, but I want to understand. Yeah, that's it. You won't know until you try. That's what experiments are at the end of the day. Hmm. I'm even just thinking now about like how do I finish this up? Because I'm over time, right? Do I let go of this idea that I stick to 60 minutes? I don't know. I have to finish at some point so that I can go and do other things. That's the philosophical question, isn't it? Because I could talk about this forever because I am talking about it forever in my head. Uh, so now what? Good question. I suppose my commitment was to do this for 1 hour, and I know I've gone over that, but now that I have gone over it, I'm thinking, okay, well, what have I got out of this hour? How can I show up the next time and bring more to what I'm talking about? And the next time that I show up is going to be talking about the theme of seeking knowledge. And that's a theme that I haven't really sat down and thought about too much until this week came up. Like, why do we seek knowledge? And I realized in my podcast episode on Monday and my post on LinkedIn yesterday that there's a lot of different reasons that you would seek knowledge. And I'm still trying to understand why I do it. And the reason I think I find it difficult to articulate is because it's something I've been doing all my life is seeking knowledge. And it's just become this passive, subconscious thing. And that is difficult to articulate when you act away and you don't really know why. Whereas with my theme of letting go is something I've really only reckoned with recently. So I feel it feels very recent and vivid. So that's why I feel I can talk about it a lot more and I have a perspective on it already. So you can join me next time to talk about seeking knowledge. I plan to go live. Let me see. I'll go live on Friday. I'll set up a new event for Friday to go live and talk about seeking knowledge. And you can join me there. So follow along if you want to join. You'll get notified once I go live on Friday, and I'll also post videos to advertise it as well. And then we can go into the second live in my series where I talk about seeking knowledge. And so for now, I guess I'm going to finish up this live talking about letting go. So thank you all for joining me and for having an interesting discussion. I love looking at your comments, reading about them, seeing your perspectives, and talking to you. So yeah, I guess I'll leave it there. I don't have anything more to say. Um, Thanks for watching and keep dreaming.